In an interview with China View, Stephen Roach, former chairman of Morgan Stanley Asia, said building a confident personal relationship between the Chinese and American leaders will be the single most important result of the upcoming summit between President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Barack Obama.
And the Chinese and American leaders will meet in an unconventional way. What do you think of it?
I think it's good. I think get outside of Washington or outside of Beijing, you have an opportunity to develop a personal relationship between the two leaders, and economic relationships that grow and change need that personal stamp from the two leaders, and I think this is an encouraging development.
How would you like to comment on the current Chinese and American relations?
Well, we'll know more about that after the upcoming summit between President Barack Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping. I think it's a complex relationship. Both economies depend very heavily on one another. They're both facing major structural issues in terms of Chinese rebalancing toward consumption, the U.S. hopefully rebalancing toward more saving. There are tough issues that both nations have with one another. The U.S. seems very concerned about the cyber security issues that China has been violating over the last several years. And China seems very concerned about America's military or naval pivot back toward Asia. I think both of those issues need to be and will be addressed at the upcoming summit.
And you've been optimistic about the Chinese economy over the past 15 years, generally. Are you still optimistic?
I'm still very optimistic about China. I think the challenges to change the structure of any large economy are enormous, and that's true of the United States, it's true of Europe, it's true of Japan, and it's clearly true of China. The advantage that China has over other economies is that your leadership tends to think strategically and express that strategy in the form of the 5-year plans. The 12th 5-year plan is a strategic shift for China in urging a support to internal private consumption, and as long as China now moves aggressively to implement the strategy, I would remain very optimistic.
What do you think has enabled China to live through, to withstand the tough external shocks over the past 4 years?
Well, China has a resilient economy and a high savings rate, and has adopted since the late 1990s, in response to the Asian financial crisis, a proactive fiscal stimulus where it moves very quickly to deal with external demand shocks, and that has served China very well for about 15 years, but it probably won't work as well in the future. So this is a time for China to think about a new growth strategy.
How do you think those inherent strengths of China have been sapped over the past few years?
Well, the world went through a horrible crisis in 2008 and 2009, and it hit China very hard, but China came out very quickly with a massive fiscal stimulus. China still is a developing economy with a lot of unmet needs in terms of urbanization, infrastructure, and of course the need to stimulate a very small consumer demand sector. So China has moved aggressively to deal with external shocks, but to the extent it stays with its old model, which is manufacturing and construction-led, focused more on external demand than internal demand, then it can't hope to be as resilient in the future as it has been in the past.
So it's really urgent for China to rebalance its economy, and not just to mention these policies, but to actually implement these policies.
The debate's over. China knows what it needs to do. The 12th 5-year plan focuses on the structural transformation to the consumer demand sector. The only questions left are implementation. And my advice to senior Chinese leaders for the last several years is to move very, very quickly in that regard.
You predicted that China's annual economic growth this year would keep at 8%. Do you still hold the same belief?
I hope so. It may be a little bit weaker than that or a little bit stronger than that. It's hard to say. I think too much is being made out of the so-called first quarter slowdown. It's one quarter. There's still 3 more quarters to go.
And we know that the outside world is still debt-battered. And how do you think China can cope with the potential challenges?
Well, the challenges from the outside really work to China's advantages because it shows that China cannot count on external demand to provide the support for exports as has been in the case in the past. So China needs, in this post-crisis climate, to take that as a given and move aggressively to stimulate internal demand, especially private consumption.